Da, 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 da. Wow, autumn is sure my favorite season of the year. I really wish it was eternal. Wait a minute, it is on the 2015 record by American black metal artist Panopticon, Autumn Eternal. How about we head into the Great North Woods and review this album, shall we?
Don't let him into his zone. Don't let him into his zone. You just let him into his music nerd zone.
Hello everyone, welcome to the MB channel. This is host of the MB channel, MB, and today we're here to finally start my new music review series, Don't Let Me Into My Zone. As you heard the little rap, well, would you call that rap? I wouldn't call that rap. But yeah, as you heard with the intro that we did at the start, and this is my new series on this channel, a music review series where I finally show off like my passion for music through recorded content. Because I did do a few music reviews in the past, but that was on Twitch where the music was playing, so I was kind of like, oh, I guess Suzanne isn't gonna like that. Well, pretty much then this was my alternative to finally archive these type of streams. Well, not stream, this recorded content. God. But pretty much, yeah, I want to record these reviews so that I can finally archive them and finally share my interests of music. Like, I have a ton of things I can review, but pretty much, I wanted to review one of my favorite albums of all time, Autumn Eternal by Panopticon. And let me tell you something, this series here will finally give me the title that I think I should claim. As the biggest music nerd in the VTuber community, no lie. But I hope you guys enjoy the content because I'm gonna go deep into this album. I'm gonna go freaking deep into it, and we're gonna review one of the greatest records of all time. Like, let me tell you something. The thing about this record is, I loved it so much that I got a special edition. It was all in gold, but I had to get it from, it was like a vinyl. I had to get it all the way from the Russian Federation. And it's so funny to me that I actually got this, like, way before than anything else I ordered. Like, for example, a company that I shall not name, but I bought merch from them. And that merch never came. But you're telling me that a freaking limited edition golden vinyl of Panopticon's Autumn Eternal from Russia came right away. You're telling me that that actually happened? Well, I'm not salty, but you know what? Let's just stop being salty and review this album now. Come on, let us hit it. Album review time. Let's go. Autumn Eternal. Starting with the first track, Tamarac's Gold Returns. That has got to be one of my favorite openers to a record ever. Let me tell you something. This record is a finale to a trio of records focusing on Panopticons. The musician's name behind Panopticon, the one-man black metal band, is Austin Lund. And Austin Lund, with these records, he did Kentucky first, Road to the North, and then finally Autumn Eternal to be the closer. This is probably like the only bluegrass track that you'll find on this record, because I do understand on Kentucky there's way more bluegrass dedicated on that album than this one, but let me tell you, even if this track is the only bluegrass track on here, like the only folk quote-unquote track on here, it's actually way more amazing than anything you could hear on Kentucky. No offense, Kentucky is a great record, but man, like Austin, he really like pulled everything out when it came down to this record, especially when it came down to what this record is supposed to represent, like a finale to like a journey of a soul walking through the great American North forest, like the boreal forest and stuff. Because what I want to consider this record is like a farewell to the journey of what Austin was going for within like the past few years with the trio of records that he created here. And every time you listen to that opener, as soon as you start this record, as soon as you hear that loon, as soon as you hear that gentle bluegrass play, because let me tell you, like whenever people listen to bluegrass, they think of like Hellbilly, like, you know, from the Goofy movie. yeah, the possum song from the Goofy movie. Yeah, but for this thing, this is probably like one of the most beautiful tracks ever I've heard. Like, no lie, like probably like the most beautiful bluegrass track I've heard. And it doesn't stop there. Like, it is quite like, it is very much like a huge transition to the second track that we'll be heading on to. But the thing about this is that even if it is quite a jarring transition, even if this is like more of a black metal record compared to like Roads to the North and Kentucky, let me tell you, this is still Panopticon's one of his most beautiful records that he ever created. So let's move on to the second track, Into the North Woods. Let's go! Like I said, that was quite a jarring transition, wasn't it? Going from a beautiful bluegrass track like Tamarac's Gold Returns right into the triumphant blast beats and guitar work that is Into the North Woods. But let me tell you something, it does establish this as the final chapter in the trilogy of records that Panopticon recorded over this period of time. Kentucky, Roads to the North, and finally the final chapter with Autumn Eternal. But let me say something. As soon as you heard the ending of the track of Tamarac's Skull Returns, as soon as you hear probably the player of that banjo, or what do you call it? I guess it's a banjo. It's a banjo. But as soon as he puts you hear him put the banjo down, I like to imagine that it was the same player of that banjo that did Tamarac's Skull Returns, going right into the Northwoods and starting off our journey of Autumn Eternal. Like he's in this final journey, reaching the eternal forest of autumn. Is that what you call it? Yeah, I think that's what you would call it. But pretty much, it does establish this as Panopticon's most atmospheric black metal record out of these 3 records. But it is quite spiritual. I know it's quite surprising to say like, oh, a black metal record being spiritual, but yes, I believe Autumn Eternal is like one of the most spiritual, life-affirming records out there. There is quite some intense tracks in here because, you know, atmospheric black metal, blah blah, has to be intense sometimes, but that intensity really does hit you in the soul hard, and especially on the next track, which is the title track on this record, Autumn Eternal. That is where the real journey starts off. Aside from Austin, Panopticon just shouting Autumn Eternal, Autumn Eternal, after that really beautiful, there's like a very light transition, a very melodic transition that is very soft, no drums at all, it's just the guitars going playing that beautiful melody that falls right into like a whole crazy, it just explodes with blast beats, and it leads right into the ending of the track. Let me say something, literally, this is what is a theme, like the title track of this album. It is quite amazing. I mean, there is a few other tracks I do consider a lot better than this, but right after Austin just literally shouts Autumn Eternal a lot, and it goes straight into that flurry of blast beats, it's just amazing. It's just freaking amazing. And it doesn't stop there, because oh no, it seems like there's a little something going down, a spark ready to make the oaks ablaze. And this is when we talk about oaks ablaze, when this track starts getting a lot intense on this album. And right, we get into Oaks Ablaze, we get into a more traditional atmospheric black metal sound, but there's still elements of that really spiritual, affirming stuff that we get with Autumn Eternal. But pretty much with this track, you do understand that even if the banjo player from our start, the person that pretty much started this whole journey of the trio records, is in this eternal autumn forest, pretty much you understand that not everything is perfect there. There is still troubles and struggles there. And that pretty much, I would say that Oaks Ablaze represents the troubles in life, the eternal struggles of life that put your whole forest of life on fire, no lie. Cause the thing about these records that Panopticon created is that they're supposed to represent the soul and the spirit of the great North America, North American nature and stuff, the North American forest. That's why you can understand why a lot of his records are based around nature when it comes to North America and stuff. But I love that because I am a really big fan of nature, especially a forest that are in eternal autumn. But not when they're ablaze with oaks, but pretty much like I said, the guitar work and the drum work is a bit more intense compared to our previous tracks. But then after that, we go into something a bit more somber, a lot more somber. And if you can understand from the title track of the next one, it's pretty much sleep to the sounds of the waves crashing. And with this track, this is pretty much one of the most somber songs on this album. It's probably a few favorites of many people that have listened to this record. It's not mine, but it's up there. It's up there as one of the best tracks on here. A lot more somber guitar work, much more atmospheric with the drum work too. Every blast beat, you can hear it echo. The intro goes you hear the waves, and it's literally what I like to imagine is that after Oaks Ablaze, after that whole blazing Oaks forest situation, pretty much I would like to believe that our banjo player literally like went like, nah, frick this, I'm gonna go right into the lake and I'm gonna just hang out there in the waves. But pretty much like, I don't really want it to be like really like dark when I say this, but he probably died. Is it even possible to escape like a forest? Nah, we're not gonna talk about forest fire situations. That's actually quite terrifying. But pretty much Sleep to the Sound of the Waves Crashing is probably like one of the most somber but one of the most beautiful tracks on this album too. Really, Panopticon is really telling like a more of like a spiritual, life-affirming but somber story when it comes down to this record compared to his previous ones. And right on to that, we go on to one of the songs on this record that probably has one of the most beautiful endings to any black metal record out there, or even like black metal song out there, or any song in general. We're moving on to Pale Ghost. And right after a somber track like Sleep to the Sound of the Waves Crashing, we have Pale Ghost. Probably, this is like what I consider the third most beautiful song on this record. I mean, to me, like, its ending is actually quite amazing. You still get some work that you hear on Sleep to the Sound of the Waves Crashing, but Pale Ghost, its closer is probably like, I would consider it maybe like a perfect closing track if you could have done it. But what Panopticon went with here actually with the track listing, I do agree that it makes this album perfect. But let me say something. Pale Ghost probably does have one of the most beautiful endings, most beautiful closer bits to any music out there. I highly recommend if you listen to this album fully, you're really gonna get hit hard by Pale Ghost's ending. And after that, we go on to probably my second favorite song in this record, A Superior Lament. And let me tell you, it is quite a superior track, really. Da, 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 da. As you saw at the beginning of this review, yeah, as I was walking into that forest on the TV, yeah, this is one of that right there was the ending, the closer to this track, A Superior Lament. I think this is like one of the first times you'll hear Panopticon using clean vocals on his track as well. I mean, yeah, there's other tracks he has used clean vocals, but this is like clean vocals, like melodic. I can't pull it off, but pretty much A Superior Lament is like there's like way too many songs here that are like awesome as frick, but right here, A Superior Lament, right into the middle where you get the silence, simple, clean, the wolves begin to speak, and then it goes like right into Panopticon going da 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 da, and then you get a da 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 guitar work, and as soon as the ending goes, and it goes with like triumphant marching band drums, and then it continues on with that melody I was doing. Oh dear lord, like let me tell you something more, like as soon as that track ends, it goes right into one of the most beautiful songs of all time, the closer, probably the greatest closer in any album ever. We're gonna go right onto the ending of this review, the ending track of this review, The Wind's Farewell. And here we are with one of the best closers ever and one of the most beautiful tracks of all time, The Wind's Farewell. I would consider this as a very spiritual, life-affirming track, but I did read some reviews saying that people said that Austin Lund, Panopticon, they consider the trio of records that he created with Kentucky, Roads to the North, and Autumn Eternal being the closer, being like a representation of the struggles of life and what one man goes through. And here I consider The Wind's Farewell being that track saying like, you finally made it to the end. Now you can rest at peace. Rest at peace with the wind. And like, even if it does sound really somber, it is beautiful as frick. It is spiritual as frick. And pretty much with everything else, I do really want to give a shout out to Panopticon, Austin Lund for creating this trio of records, but mostly this ending track and this album as a whole, because it is one of the most beautiful things out there. And I'm gonna say that Panopticon's Autumn Eternal from 2015 is one of my favorite albums of all time. and I do not regret buying that that golden vinyl edition from Russia, because this album is way too amazing to not get something like that. Not at all. And that concludes the first episode of the series of the Don't Let Me Into My Zone music review series on the MB channel. I'm finally happy to actually release this. I know that it was probably like, no babbling, it's just a music nerd babbling. He sounds like a nerd babbling a bunch. But no lie, this is actually one of my favorite records of all time. If I ever do create a Rate Your Music on stream, which I will eventually do, you will find out how high I will place this on my 10 out of 10s, because let me tell you something, Austin here, Panopticon, he's created probably like, I don't know, like there has never been another record like this that has represented like a spiritual, somber feeling about like one of my favorite seasons of all time, but also like how many tracks in here were like one of the most beautiful things ever. You had the ending to Pale Ghost, you had the intro track which is Tamarac's Gold Returns, and then you have Superior Lament, and then you have Sleep to the Sounds of the Crashing Waves, and then you have the ending track, which is like one of my favorite songs of all time. One of my favorite songs of all time, The Wind's Farewell. I'm really hoping to release more of these music reviews because I really do want to do more recorded content. I know it's kind of hard for me to do recorded content, like, it's actually quite hard to read a script for me. I mean, I babble a lot already, so I want to keep that babbling to a minimum to really like crunch up this type of content, because I want this content to be a minimum like to a lot of reviews that I've watched of music nerds do, that I watched in the past, and I'm really hoping to improve with this series, and hopefully we'll release more in the future. I really do. And let's hope it actually makes me speak better, because ooh, artism. But yeah, I'm really hoping to prove myself as the biggest music nerd in the VTuber community with these reviews, because shoutouts to my man at Panopticon, Austin Lund. Like, he's made a lot more records with this project as a solo band man, but let me tell you, man. Let me tell you, Austin Lund, you have created one of my favorite records of all time, and I'm happy that I bought that golden vinyl edition of it from Russia. Well, I'm out. You guys remember to stay based, and you know what they say, Autumn Eternal. Bye. Man, even if that album kinda ended on a somber spiritual note, let me tell you something. If this Autumn Eternal force is real, I'm gonna hang out here forever. Forever and ever and ever. Forget the city life. This Autumn Eternal forest is there for me. Hey, MB, did you forget that there's no internet reception in the forest? Literally, that's how a lot of people get lost and eaten by bears. I know the forest is beautiful, but it's not gonna be good for you. What do you mean by there's no internet reception here? No internet. Well, I haven't run into any bears, but no internet means I can't watch streams. I can't support other VTubers like I usually do. Forget that. I'm out here. Bye. Remember to listen to Autumn Eternal, best album of all time. Well, one of them. Bye.